What is going on, guys? Welcome to the TSO Podcast number 5. I'm joined here with my good friend Bobby the Green Jr.
What's up, fellas?
And our guest host, Akshat, aka Sing or Asinghal.
What's up?
And today, we got a couple topics to talk about, mostly around Madden 18. Want to get some opinions. Hopefully, we got some guys popping into the chat. Want to get some good discussion going here. But before we get started, I'll start it out like we always do. Mr. Bobby, what have you been doing in sports gaming this week?
Oh, man, just continuing our Hard Knocks League. Coming down the end here with, I think after tonight we'll have 3 weeks left. And then gotten to the racing mood and decided to drop $20 on the NASCAR game just to see what it was like. Because you remember the old EA NASCAR
Sure.
Thunder. I always thought that was fun. I mean, it was the easiest game in the world, but it was fun.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. So it's similar to that. So I just picked it up and started messing with it.
What do you mean getting into the racing mood? What does that mean?
I don't know, man. You know, it's always that there's always a drought in the way I've always been. It's been like sports football is balls to the wall from like end of July to first week in February, and then there's like a dead time, right? Because I'm not a big basketball fan.
Right.
I mean, I like basketball, but it's not like a priority or anything.
Sure.
Football's a priority.
Sure.
I'm from Texas. I don't know what else to say. So after the Super Bowl, even when I was a kid, you know, I lived in every state in the South, so my parents would always go to like Friday night races and stuff just to kill time because it was just us. It was my parents and my sister and myself, so we would just go there as a family when we were kids. And so I've got a little bit of racing like in my background. So this time between like first week in February and I would say probably to like when baseball season really starts getting going, like I'll start watching it when it starts at the end of March and April, May. But when it gets to like June is when I really started getting hooked into baseball.
Yeah.
This 4-month period or 3-month period before then, I just kind of watch NASCAR and stuff, and I always have. So when the 500 was on, I was like, you know, I want to play a racing game. So I just bought it.
Well, there you go.
Long story short.
Yeah. What about you, Akshat?
Outside of HK, I've been playing a lot of TGC, the golf club. It's fun if you haven't played that. A couple of the FIFA guys, we have a league going. There's like 8 or 9 of us.
The golf club, they said.
Yeah. It's like everyone starts on a level field. I mean, no one's like, you don't create a player or anything that's better than anyone else. And then it doesn't have any real courses in it, but it has a course designer. So people create courses that are similar to real life ones.
Okay.
Yeah, just been playing that and this and a little bit of the FIFA League too, which is wrapping up for the season.
Wrapping up for the title?
Like each season goes like 3 months or so.
Oh, okay.
So we're on the final week of this season. So now tomorrow is the last day technically of the season. So title races are wrapping up. I'm done with my game, so I'm just kind of waiting.
Yeah. How'd you do and how'd you finish?
Not great. Second half of the season was
Nice. So y'all's guys' cameras aren't showing up real quick. I'm gonna refresh y'all's chat. And,
Mine's not.
Yeah, I think it's me. I'm gonna refresh real quick. Let's see if that'll get you. Nope, that left us. Boom. All right, that was quick. Good deal. Cool. So we're kind of what we're going to cover today. Bobby had kind of brought a couple topics to mind or to my attention here. One of the things that we've kind of been seeing a lot on a number of different wish lists out there from pretty much every franchise community is the idea, or not really an idea because it was in previous Maddens, but the ability to track historical stats and information. So, Bob, why don't you kind of lead us into that topic a little bit? Give us your thoughts.
I mean, my thoughts about we always talk about immersion, right? We always talk about being engaging and we have a core group, and those guys like to look back and look and see, who, not only the stats, but the awards and the MVPs and the Super Bowl winners and the playoff win. I mean, all that information is just stuff that just builds into our franchises, right?
Sure.
So from there, we're able to, in my eyes, we're able to even create more content geared to our individual franchises to get our franchises out there, and people can come back and look and see the link. Like, I can go through HK myself and give you like all the Super Bowl winners, and I can say that, but if people see it, then it just makes it more streamlined, more immersion,
right,
more engaging to any audience out there on Twitter or through the forum or whatever. It just makes it all more engaging.
Right.
I mean, I just think we need some way to look back and be able to track it in the game, track it, because that'll take that out of our hands to track it and give us all the information on our franchises from start to finish.
Right. So I guess I'll ask both of you guys kind of where do you rank all those features, right? I mean, you being able to kind of look back and say, oh, my running back ran for 800 yards his rookie year, 1,100 yards the next year, 1,200 yards, 1,400 yards, and so on and so on. I mean, that's like a numerical thing, right? That's pure stats, pure, just stat line boxes. How do you feel, kind of laying on top of that with things like, I want to be able to pull up a player card and see how many Pro Bowls he was in or see what years he went to the Pro Bowl. I mean, kind of lay those out for me.
I'll let Asinghal go. I mean, I'm sure he has an idea on any kind of stat tracking he'd like to see.
I definitely want to be able to see Pro Bowls and just, I guess, awards in general from the past years, because so far, I mean, even now, we can't even really see who makes the Pro Bowl easily. There's no, like, one place to go look at all that. So first start with that, and then we can, I guess then I'll ask for being able to go back and look at Pro Bowlers in the past. But that's probably pretty high on my list. Looking at past champions, all the award winners like best quarterback, MVP, O-line, DB, all that stuff. I think right now it's kind of lackluster in terms of seeing all that stuff in the past.
I think awards is the one that I want the most. The awards, I would go awards, Super Bowl winners, and then Pro Bowlers in that order.
Yeah.
And then whatever stats you want to put out there or whatever from there. But it's always nice to see the progression of Rookie of the Year to or nothing the next year, or maybe the guy gets hurt and then he comes back and he's the comeback player of the year or whatever. I know that award's not in Madden, but it kind of should be. So, I like to see that progression of the awards. It kind of gives us something to kind of trash talk each other about too.
So you're advocating that having the awards and things like Pro Bowls and stuff like that is actually more immersive than having stat tracking over multiple years. Is that what I'm hearing?
From my perspective, I think so. I think awards and Super Bowl winners, all that coupled together, the information, I guess that you would make that, what would you call that, an information of the league as opposed to just stats.
Yeah.
I think that information is maybe a little bit more important than actual stats. But I mean, it's close 1 and 2. But I'm always like looking at those awards, and guys remember that stuff more than they'll remember other stuff.
I think there's some truth to that. I don't know. Seeing where you land on that. What's more important to you?
Yeah, I'm kind of where Bob is on that. Everyone remembers Super Bowls, who wins the Super Bowl, but I think the awards, a lot of times I don't even remember who wins the awards in the current year. But that's just me like not caring because my guys are never in the running for awards. So it's just but I mean that's a me thing. I'm sure other people are better at keeping track of current awards than I am, but I'd rather, I don't know.
No,
I think past awards is probably number 1 on my list.
Yeah, I think kind of looking back, when we had more active, NCAA leagues, they were, I don't think I went back and looked at stats really that much. I mean, I know I did, for players I was interested in, but it was mostly, looking at how many All-Americans, whatever, right? Like, who was the Bolitnikoff winner, the last couple of years. Things like school records were huge. Like, I remember looking at that all the time, like how closely my junior wide receiver was trending towards breaking the career receiving records for whatever school I was at. I think that sort of stuff, now that going through this conversation, I really think it was probably more, more visible, more utilized than the actual just numbers were, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's just overall, it's more beneficial, I guess. And as being a commissioner, in my eyes, I just want guys to be able to see what they've done.
So on the subject of awards, like kind of, there's been, so I've seen this comment pop up a number of different times on a few different websites now, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. What do you guys think about users voting in award races, like offensive rookie of the year? I mean, do you think the users, being GMs or coaches of the league, should be casting votes for that? I mean, do you feel like there's an opportunity there to be kind of I don't know, gamey, right? Like everybody's not going to vote for the guy in the league that has, nobody's going to vote for Tom Brady of the league, right? Because everybody hates him.
Yeah, I think
just
like for playing something like OTP, it's there's an added element to being able to vote yourself versus the computer just determining who's Pro Bowlers and who's like whatever the different awards are. I mean, even OTP, it decides the best pitchers and all that, Cy Young and all that it does automatically. But at least all-star voting in that is user-based, which I think I would love to see that in Madden. Maybe not for particular or specific awards, but for Pro Bowl at least. Even if it's like a 50-50, just have computer or users do half of the voting, and then CPU determines like some sort of weighting on the votes. I think it would add another human element that makes it more engaging.
Yeah, because keep in mind, there's XP goals that are tied to all that, right? So
right. So everyone, instead of having everyone just vote for their own guys,
yeah.
I mean, even if people do, there'd still be some CPU elements to avoid having, I guess.
And that's why I would probably award. I think awards should be lumped in with Pro Bowl votes. I think it just should be like a, 70% CPU, 30% user bait. Like break it down that way.
Right.
That way you don't have guys just blowing up their guys. I mean, the CPU is going to put some logic behind who they select and who gets the Pro Bowl and who gets the MVP or offensive rookie of the year or whatever. And you don't have like guys, just spamming it.
Right. If it's 100% user voting, I think that's easy to manipulate, and people would just
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
So there definitely still has to be some sort of CPU element in it to balance it out. But as it is right now, it's completely just, I don't know. You just sit there and wait to see who makes it. Like you have no say in it whatsoever.
Yeah. And then you move past the screen and you don't even know who it was, right? It was like it's
Right.
like a flash in the pan.
Right.
And by the time you get to off season, you don't even remember.
Yeah. And the only way to know is to see who, once you hit playoffs, who has like the big XP jumps. And that's just, it's boring that way.
Yeah. What do you guys think about soft what I call soft stats? So like, not so much of a medical history, but being able to kind of look back and say, oh, this guy's had, 2 years ago, he only had 600, yards because he broke his leg in week 12, or like, how do you guys feel like those should be, like stuff like that should be implemented into the game, or if it even should be?
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I mean, any kind of information is better than nothing, right? So, and I think, especially like if even like somebody like a medical history like that, I think that would be a pretty good, piece of history.
Sure.
Say you got a guy that's injured every season. You know what I mean? So stuff like that would always add. I don't know what other soft stats. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what other soft stats we could do.
Another one would be like if a guy was, his first 3 years in the league was with the Giants and then was, signed a different contract with the Redskins or something like that. You would be able to see. I know in the old games you would see like the 3-digit team identifier, right? That was kind of on the left column of the stats. So it'd be like year, the team, and then all the stats for that player. But you never knew like how he got to, like what happened between those line items of, the Giants and Pittsburgh. It just changed all of a sudden. So you don't know if it was like a trade or like free agency or he got cut or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think any of that would be something on the radar as well, especially when you get 32 users.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice, like, and I keep going back to OTP, but like even in OTP, if you go and click on a player, you can like look at their injury history and
right. You can look at everything.
Yeah. History, like who they were traded to, and
look at those splits.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at. I mean, OTP is probably way more advanced than Madden will ever be in terms of like looking at detailed stats, but
yeah,
basic things like looking at transaction history and injury history is something that would be interesting in Madden and definitely something I would use.
Well, they have a whole lot more, I think, flexibility. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Being just like a sim, a tech sim league or whatever.
Sure.
Definitely gives them more room to do more stuff.
Yeah, and I think the one of the bigger differences there is like not just because it's a tech sim, but because they, everything happens via the same in the same plane, right? Like everything that's simming, everything that happens in the game, it's all just different lines of text. So pulling that all into one spot is just like a parallel or horizontal move, right? Taking everything that happens in Madden, which is in game, actual, you and another user playing against each other most of the time, and then pulling that back out and putting it into different screens that are visible through, a player card or a stat, menu item. Like I think a lot of that is it becomes this spaghetti factory of information passing between different menus and, from different tables, I'm sure, behind the scenes. So I think it was, whether it was any different or not back in the previous games where we had that sort of stuff, it just seemed like it was more connected than it does now, right? Like at least all the different game modes and places you can go within the menus.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you get in there and you just feel like you can just feel it's missing those elements,
Yeah. So, I guess that's, we kind of, to recap, I think, what we're saying really is that a lot of the badges of honor and the awards is stuff that, we think we'd probably rather see in the game at this point, which is interesting. When you think of historical stat tracking and people talk about it all the time, you just assume they're talking about, the numbers, right? They're talking about the actual stat lines, year to year to year. And I kind of, talking through it, I kind of agree with you guys that, I think a lot of the, titles and badging and things like that probably end up adding more immersion to the game than just, being able to look back and see how many fumbles your running back had over the last, 7 seasons. Interesting. So kind of moving into the next topic, another thing that's been requested, probably since two generation consoles ago, was being able to, play your franchise. Most of the time it was offline back then, but today online franchise. And when the new Madden comes out every August, late August, being able to take your franchise or online franchise and just continue that file, somehow port that file over and continue in the exact same spot you are in the previous gen title.
So you have like 2 issues with this, right? So when time the NFL draft hits, everybody wants to play with those new kids from college or whatever, and that's what it is when you come into Madden. Like when we do team selections, people end up picking some of the people end up picking their teams based on that draft, but then you get into the season and you play 3, 4, 5 seasons, you become attached to the players that you draft throughout that franchise, right? So you end up wanting to carry that over. So it's like a 50-50 thing. Like everybody I talk to is, oh, I want to play with this guy, and I want to keep playing with this guy, and I want to see him throughout his career, not just 5 seasons or 4 seasons of his career, but 10 seasons or 12 seasons or whatever. But then they're like, oh, well, I kind of want to play with, let's say, Elliott, because the Cowboys drafted him 4th overall. So it's kind of like one of those things like, man, it would be so awesome to do. But then it would be like, how do you maintain immersion into it when they want to play with somebody new? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that's the each edge of the sword, right? Is being able to not let go of what you've done, and then being able to get the influence of all the new people, new draft class, new whatever into the game. I think one of the systematic issues with online franchise and the stability around the mode really is that in a cycle, if you go really fast, you can only, with 32 users or something close to that, you get through what, 5, 6, maybe.
I think some of the leagues now, like a league on tradition, the TMFL, I think they're going to get through like 6 seasons.
Yeah.
Or 7 seasons, but we may only get through 6 because we're just a little bit off their pace.
Yeah. So 6 or 7, we'll say. I mean, like back in the day, the guys that were franchise guys that you played on offline or whatever, dude, 7 seasons would be like a failure. Like I wouldn't even touch, a mode that went through 7 seasons, right? Like,
Mhm.
I was, everybody was in that 12, 15, 20 season, range, if you were really into it. So, I think that's probably one of the things that's missing. One of the things that made NCAA so, you know, engaging and so deep was the fact that you could go 10, 12, 14 seasons, right? And the way the game plays, at that point, based on launch, is completely different because the game's completely generated its own players. There's, you've crafted the game to meet, you kind of put your own stamp on it. And I feel like, especially most Madden leagues, but even the ones that go fast, kind of are missing that element, right? So would a feature like this be able to, continue, kind of help build on that?
Yeah, I think it's also harder for Madden because, well, I personally want to see it happen. I think it would be a nice feature, at least have the option to. But I think it's harder in the NFL because things change from, or at least for Madden, things change from release to release. Like things like the draft class. So, like whatever the generation that they have for the draft class, that changes from year to year. Like this year, the way draft classes are created is way different than the way they were created last year. So I don't know. I think there are things that it could also help solve in terms of late release and like late in the release, how people handle their teams. I mean, even I kind of took advantage of the fact that we only have probably 2 or 3 seasons left when it came to handing out contracts in the off season. But I think
it would definitely fix that. I mean, some guys just completely, utterly have no regard for that aspect of the league this late in the year. I mean,
so Adrian kind of brings up a good point. For those who don't know, Independent on the forum, that he makes an argument that the free agent pool kind of gets so tangled around itself when you get the more and more seasons you get into Madden, with regression and a bunch of other stuff. It starts like, as much as it affects the franchises that are 5-7 years, that range. I mean, that's one of the things that if you were to create a port feature, you would have to address, right? Like how does progression models from one game to the next, regression models, things like XP earning, how do you port all that over such that you don't get into a situation where your franchise has to completely become, kind of grind to a halt because you can't sign the right guys, the salary cap system's all busted up. I know there's testing that goes on the development side on kind of that longevity factor. But it's a lot of sim, right? When you have so many players playing the game a different way than the computer does, I think that's a real concern.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like MLB The Show has it, right? They have a carryover feature.
yes, they're the only. I think they're the only game that does it.
Yeah, I'm curious how it works for them because I don't actually play that much, at least in terms of like staying in a franchise or a dynasty throughout several seasons. So I don't know how regression and all that works with them. Does
I
that
don't know anybody that does it online. I know a couple guys that do it offline, but it's one of those things. In that game, it's hard to compare the two.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they had those same issues. I know regression's a huge issue in Madden where like even between last release and this release, it's completely different, and that would throw off the carryover feature, I think.
And that, I mean, that brings up another slew of topics. You know, does there need to be a set regression to do all this, or set? You know, it all needs to be set years before
Right.
you even get into this carryover feature, right? I mean,
I totally agree. Right. Like I said, I think it's a combination of people. The desire to bring this feature into Madden is, really a function of people doing something great in one version of the game and not wanting to necessarily kind of let that go. I think that's where it breeds, right? I think that's where it cultivates. But, quite honestly, I really think that there's way more priorities of things that need to be in the game ahead of that, right? And to your comment, and Adrian's point in the chat, I mean, who knows what that's going to do? I mean, you may spend a lot of work on a title. They may spend a lot of work. EA may spend a lot of work putting this feature in. You smash the two together, and then you get a bad result at the in the next title because of some clunkiness in the port, based on different game modes or based on different factors of how the game plays. I think that's one feature in a giant bucket of features that the Madden community as a whole chirps on, and without really kind of laying that out and seeing how how it would really function, right? And then introspectively looking and saying, where does this rank internally to my own wants in Madden, right? I mean, is that really more important than being able to see who was on the Pro Bowl last year or the year before, right? I mean, like, that seems a little more core to the game.
I mean, if this was on the list of features and you put other things in front of it, like the the history of the league or any number of off-season fixes, or we talked about XP scouting, this would be way down the list for me. I mean, way down the list. As much as I love, because I mean, let's put it this way. Like, okay, so a couple of releases ago, we tried something in Hard Knocks. We called it dynamic players. So we let every player that played the year before pick one of their draft picks that they became attached to and created them and brought them over in the Hard Knocks the next cycle, right? But what ended up happening was, and as fun as it was to have those players and playing with those guys, they were overpowered coming into the next cycle because I think it was 2 years ago, and some of the attributes were weighted less than they were the year before.
Yeah,
it didn't mesh. Like it just didn't mesh. So it was fun, but it didn't mesh. So it's just one of those things. I just would put it way down the list.
Sure. It would be an interesting exercise to take every feature that the big communities, even around franchise, you narrow down, put a rifle scope around those modes, and really have, if you had some forum of a debate, right, an educated one, which is probably impossible. But it'd be interesting to see where stuff like that gets a lot of buzz, but ultimately would rank near in the bottom quartile, if not further down.
Yeah, I think there are more important things. It would be a nice feature to have, but it's definitely not near the top of my list of what I think Madden should improve on.
So what is on the top of your list? Saying, I mean, if we gave you a golden check to write to EA to get 2 or 3 things in the game, and what would those be for you?
Oh man, you put him on the spot.
I know. I don't really have like a list of like, oh, this would make Madden like perfect or whatever. This is what I want for sure. I don't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of the guys in HK though, right? Like
I think my biggest thing would just right now would be being able to, and these are like just nitpicking, I guess, set a draft board for the draft. Revamping free agency. I hate how it currently works. And there's some gameplay stuff, but I would be talking forever if I talked about what I wanted for gameplay.
So, what about free agency really bothers you? I mean, like, give me a high level overview.
I hate the point system.
Okay.
I hate that you can see what someone else is offering and that you can get 1 point above them and nothing else matters, I guess. I think there should be more variables in play than just money.
Sure.
And one other thing, and you guys have mentioned this in a past podcast before, I think scouting needs to have more variability in it too. Because like even in real life, not every team scouts every player the same way.
Yeah.
Which everyone sees the exact same static ratings for the incoming rookies. So I think that needs changed.
Right. What's your number one gameplay fix right now?
Don't get him started. Don't get him started.
Adrian says he agrees that free agency is awful this year, and that he cost you about $20 million a season.
Yeah, that was rough. Me and him just went back and forth on one corner until we wrote up the price. But gameplay wise, I don't know. I don't think there's one gameplay thing I could pick. There's just like, I guess Adrian said the ball physics. I do agree that the ball physics are weird. Like I don't like the tipped passes that go 50 feet in the air, but
yeah, I think that's everybody's main complaint with ball physics.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that's my top thing. It's just one of the many little things. I don't know. I couldn't give you just one.
How about defensive pass interference actually work?
Yeah, not being able to bump receivers 15 yards down the field.
I mean, there's guys that ride guys, and it's part of the game, right? But we have a member that will literally like up the wide receiver 15, 25, 30 yards down the field and then get the user alert pick or whatever. And he does it all the time. And most of you guys watching know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to call names out, but he bumps a wide receiver a ridiculous amount. That I know that's one thing. I know there's a lot of complaint in Hard Knocks about the offensive line and the way it works. Like it seems like sometimes I don't know the left guard or the right guard or whatever. I'll just stand there.
Yeah, I mean, best of this. My current team has a left tackle who's like 90 run block, 92 pass block or something, and every play I spend more time. He's supposed to be my best offensive lineman, but every play I spend more time just watching him get blown up. So I don't know. I've yet to figure out why he sucks, and
the ratings mystery.
Yeah, I cannot figure it out. The only thing I could think is his strength is kind of low, but it's like, is that really what's causing him to get blown up by like 75 overall guys who have like 80 pass rushing moves?
It's probably a combination of this rating plus that rating equals this,
Right. I mean,
A plus B plus C.
It's a mystery that in Madden I've never been able to solve. I've never had a good O-line, or at least an O-line that I can trust. But my other thing, and I think they've agreed. They've improved it a little bit this year, is man coverage, and that's I think been a complaint every year. So I'm not gonna like go into that.
Well, except for 2 years ago when 2-man under was literally unbeatable. So the pendulum swings one way, right?
Yeah, I know last year man coverage was pretty much impossible to run. It was just you could run man coverage. I would run man coverage, and I knew for a fact that I was going to give up like 10 to 15 yards on that play. and I think it's a little better this year, but there's still some issues I have with it. Some routes are still unstoppable against man unless you user the corner. But yeah, I really don't have one particular thing. Just a few things that I think.
Adrian, he says he needs some better playbook variety, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Keller says wide receiver double moves. None of them work. Yeah. So
you can't set somebody up.
And that has a lot to do with man coverage, right? Like it's
right.
It's the reason double moves would work in real life is not implemented into man coverage logic. So it's that's a limitation for sure right now.
Yeah, I think it's also part of part of that comes back to at least for me, the O-line issues. If I have a receiver who's running a double move, by the time he actually gets out of that double move, I'm typically getting hit. So I don't really.
Do you feel like that's the insta sheds that are getting you? The insta shed blocks?
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes just I see a lot of if a D line runs some stunts or something, I end up having 2 O linemen who are just standing there while there are 3 defensive linemen standing over my quarterback. So a mix of stuff. And again, this could just be my O line being terrible, but
yeah, I mean, trust me, there's a general consensus out there that because no one really knows what ratings do, and we've got some really funny responses from devs. When these questions are asked, but especially people that are casual to the game, they value overall, the OVR rating tremendously. That's like the only thing that tells them whether a player's good or bad. And I think for some aspects of the game, if not a lot of aspects of the game, but particularly like blocking and the interactions that happen there, really, start to be. They get they get really muddy when you try to, dissect what traits or ratings dominate those interactions, right? I will tell you that strength is a huge factor. I know that for a fact. So if you have even a good lineman that has low strength, he's probably going to catch more negative animations than positive ones. But
yeah, that's probably what the issue is. But I've never labbed it enough to figure it out and do all that. And then even on defense, a rating like play recognition is something that I feel like for some positions it matters, other positions it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Like D-line, I've played against guys who have 55 play rec and they play like animals because they have high finesse and power moves. So play rec just doesn't matter for them. But then I have corners on the other side of that scale where their coverage isn't that good, but their play rec is good enough where they get 10 picks in a season.
Yeah. Well,
I wish there's more consistency on that.
It is different by position.
Right.
And it is different by position, by scenario. So, how defensive linemen act in the run game is, different ratings matter versus how they act in the passing game. Keller says D-line play recognition matters for screens. Yeah, probably.
I read somewhere where for D-line, awareness comes into how fast they get off the ball.
Interesting.
Which was, and that was, it was a blog, I believe, by one of the devs or a tweet or something that said that awareness. Plus, I mean, there were other things that they were spelling out, but they said awareness for D-line was about how fast they can get off on the snap.
Yeah, I mean,
and it makes sense. But then, what does their play rec do right there? You know what I mean? It's just so many things that are out there.
yeah, I haven't heard that one in particular, but it wouldn't shock me. And the other thing that happens is every time there's a new mechanic put into the game, the ratings get jumped around. You know, they get tethered to different things, like the new catching mechanics. Like they were able to tie certain things in based on catch radiuses and animation meshes. It's very, 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 very complex, and that's why it's hard to get straight answers.
Yeah, wasn't there a time when I think
Every
Madden had
release.
for offensive linemen you could actually improve their footwork ratings, like run block and pass block footwork ratings? I don't remember if that was. I remember you could see that. Maybe that was NCAA, but I mean those were all ratings that like I never ever touched. I don't know how much they ever did. And then now I never touch awareness, but apparently.
So awareness isn't going to do much for certain positions. So you should. That's one thing to recognize. And I think Keller's comment is correct about the footwork stuff. I think it's only used in sim.
Okay.
In simulation, I don't know that it means anything in actual interactions in the group.
And it's the same thing for what? Throw accuracy? There used to be a hit throw accuracy, and then it was separated by all three. I don't remember now if there's still that THA in there or not, or if it's just the three.
Yeah, throw accuracy has nothing to do with how accurate throws are. It's all dictated by the zoned accuracy ratings.
Like Daddy League still shows the blanket throw accuracy rating, but it's not. I don't think that's actually accurate.
Yeah, it's probably a some kind of compiled rating, but. With that being said, we've been online here for 50 minutes. We'll probably go ahead and close this out. We'll again try to get more. We're being more consistent with these. Hopefully, we're getting some credit for that. We knew we were going to podcast tonight, and I didn't tweet it out until like an hour ago. So we still have to improve that aspect of what we're doing here. But we're again. Episode 5, we're 5 in. Hopefully by 10, we're in a little bit better groove. If you're interested in coming on to the podcast, I know Cass mentioned that earlier. We've had Keller on already, who's in the comments.
Sure, you want a drunk Casp here?
Hey, we'll take anybody right now.
Yeah, all about whoever's entertaining, right? We'll get you on here. Just reach out to me or Bob. We have a calendar going that we're trying to organize this thing on. As you guys might have seen on the site, we're reaching out to a lot of the leagues. We're getting trying to continue to make progress on the site and make it better for you guys. So if you have ideas, comments, concerns. I know Bob's pretty reachable. I'm extremely reachable, just accessible. Just throw me a message. I'm in the Slack. I'm in the forums, on the Twitter. But if we'll go ahead and sign off. You guys can reach us on Twitter at Tradition Sports. You can email us at drifterbub@traditionsportsonline.com. We'll get your questions addressed. If you got a topic we want to kind of flesh out, we certainly like to hear from you. So with that being said, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
See you later, guys.
Later, guys.